Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're going to take a look at a case, well, basically an Okinos case, that proves that they don't do only regular mid-tower wooden cases, right? Today we have an Aqua 9 case, which comes with, well, quite a lot, 5 pre-installed fans, and it does resemble to some other cases, but we're going to break it down, and I'm going to give you details and comparison with those cases, just to give you an idea how much this case actually is great. I mean, let's be honest, you have one intake fan on the front, 3 on the side, which are all 4 reversed, and you have one regular fan here at the rear. Sadly, you can't place a 140 because, let's be honest, the white of this case is quite regular, so there is no possibility to, adding 2 more centimeters on the side, then we would have 140, but, let's be realistic. You're having a back connect support, you're having loads of cable management space at the back, quite thick radiator at the top because you have loads of space, and I just wanted to prove that because I placed the Lee Hydroshift 2 LCD-C on top, and it needs loads of space because of the tubes right here. So it has loads of space at the top. You have the possibility to connect literally everything, including going towards the EPS cables, so they don't get hidden away by the, well, basically the AIO. So the design in general is quite nice. I'm really satisfied with the production because, let's be honest, we're having 5 fans, we're having quite solid construction, design and tempered glass, and the whole visual aspect in general, the thought trueness of the case for $99. So this is quite cool. And to be honest, this is maybe the only case in this scenario, in this form factor, in this segment, in this shape, that can support 2 360 radiators, because you can go with a 360 on the side and 360 on the top. So let's break it down with the Okinos AQUA 9 to give you a bit more information about it. You have vertical airflow design with panoramic 270 view. That's regular view, but I think in general all manufacturers are now using that term for 270 because, well, basically you have quite loads of segment for visual aspect. We have 4 H12R PWM addressable RGB reverse fans and one 120 H12 PWM addressable RGB. And it comes with 5+5 PWM and addressable RGB fan controller at the back. You need to connect the PWM and addressable RGB header to your motherboard to get the possibility to control the lights and, of course, the fan speed and SATA power directly to your power supply. The one thing that this controller has is when you don't want to use a reset button, you can simply connect it to the controller, and then this button right here turns into addressable RGB controller, which gives you an option to switch through their preset single color addressable RGB madness and similar stuff like that. But if you need the reset button, you can simply just unplug it from the controller and connect it to the front panel jack, and that's it. On the power supply shroud, when you take a look at it, it really does have a specific design, and we have this addressable RGB line that lights up quite nicely and subtle, no individual LEDs. This is nicely diffused and altogether quite nice final touch on it. And on top of it, what you can do is you get 2 standoffs, which are a bit higher than usual for your motherboard, comparing it when we're talking about the length, and you can mount their PCI riser. So this gives you an option to put the GPU vertically inside this case, which is amazing. Now, since I mentioned the vertical GPU mount, what you can do is you have 4 screws at the back for the PCI expansion slots. You untie those 4 screws, you flip over the expansion slot, and you get an option. You just need to have that riser that has that L-shaped PCIe connection to be able to mount it here, and that's basically it. You can place your GPU vertically. When we're talking about accessing the chassis, it's actually really toolless because the side panels and the front tempered glass are on pegs, and on top you have a magnetic dust filter with a nice touch with Okinos logo just to pull off that magnetic dust filter. So it supports dual 360 radiator, what I mentioned, and to give you an idea on how to mount it, for the top radiator the tubes need to be on front, and for the side radiator the tubes need to be at the bottom. This is the only way that you can go with dual 360, but just to give you an idea on how to configure the inlet and outlet, well, basically the tubes, to give you a possibility to mount those. Now, when we go with compatibility, we have 420 millimeters of length for the GPU, which is outstanding. For the power supply, we go up to 220, and we have loads of space for cable management at the bottom and everything to hide the cables. And for the air cooler, or just the CPU cooler height, is 170 millimeters. Now, switching back to the I/O ports, apart from the reset button and addressable RGB controller, we have power on button. Then we have the headphone microphone combo jack, 2 USB 3.0 and 1 USB Type-C 3.2 generation 2, 10 gigabits per second. For the storage, what you can do is you have this specific bracket that can be removed with 4 screws, and you don't have to worry it won't fall off when you remove those screws, because it has 2 hinges on the sides, well, not hinges, kind of clips that hold that cage. What you can do with the storage is quite solid, because you have a possibility to mount 2 2.5-inch SSDs and 1 3.5-inch hard drive. If you decide to go for a custom liquid cooling solution, since we have possibility to place 2 360 radiators, and this case kind of does look quite interesting for that, you have an option to remove this whole panel right here. And you have the option to place right here a pump res combo, which will give you a possibility to mount 360 on the side, 360 on the top, and pump res combo here that will look nice. So let's go with that comparison that I mentioned, and we're gonna go specifically with Phanteks NV5 that I actually had for review. Of course, similar cases go with Corsair 3500X and Asus A31, but specifically gonna go with Phanteks. As I said, that's the only case from those 3 that I reviewed. So the price tag is basically the same. Okinos is actually quite smaller, but the NV5 actually supports E80X motherboards. Then when we go with GPU lengths, of course, we have a bit higher compatibility with the NV5. Expansion slots, both 7, but the Aqua 9 supports BTF. Then for the cable routing space, we have 41 millimeters, and compared to NV5, you don't get, with that case, Type-C connection. So that's one thing. The interesting thing is the same price, but no fans in NV5, and that's something that you do need to take into consideration. And of course, you don't get a controller. Finally, both cases support 360 radiators on the side and on top, but only the Aqua 9 supports simultaneously 360 on both top and the side. The one thing that I also noticed is that the NV5, I think it doesn't have support for vertical GPU, but regardless of that, this case actually has everything, and for $100, including those 5 fans, I think that's quite nice catch. Specifically, if you're aiming for this type of chassis and you still want to go with a custom liquid cooling solution, just because of the possibility for dual radiator support. And at the back, the best thing about the back is you have loads of space even if you don't go with BTF or back connect motherboards, and Velcro ties are already pre-installed, so you get the option to reorganize the cables. 24-pin EPS go on the side, quite logical, here on the far right, but you have those extrusions to use zip ties and to make a quite nice cable management. So we're off to benchmarks, and we have AMD Ryzen 9 7900X3D paired up with PNY GeForce RTX 5080 Epic X addressable RGB graphic card. With these results, AIDA 64 Extreme Edition CPU goes up to 88 degrees, which is a bit higher, and the clock speed is 4750, which is below average. And the GPU is around 56 to 58, and that is brilliant for this type of graphic card. I mean, let's be honest, the massive cooling does help, but regardless of that, you do need to have a proper airflow from the case. And then we go with Cinebench. Now, this is quite interesting because we're having 80.1 Celsius degrees out of 10 runs on average, and I think that's quite solid. I can't say anything against that. It's right on the above average in that sense. Then we go with clock speed, which is quite high, I do have to admit, 4978 megahertz. And finally, we go with Cinebench scores. We get 26,491, which sums up to the point that is definitely above average. And with the performance, it got even better for the HydroShift to LCDC than in the past review. So this is a well-ventilated case, because this fan right here pushes it a bit further from the side as well, giving a nice intake for the GPU, giving a nice intake for the AIO at the top, and that sums it all up. I think this case is a quite solid catch for $100. I mean, I mentioned it already 2-3 times, but regardless of that, with the 5 fans, with the design, with the final finish, I think this actually deserves a PC Crazy approved badge, because, well, honestly, in a sense where you get a 5+5 PWM and addressable RGB controller, quite nice visual aspect with this LED strip, and this type of bent or whatever the power supply shroud design is really also quite appealing. So it's not just sharp on all sides, but really does break down this case quite nicely. And quite nice accessibility when we're talking about IO ports. All in all, quite satisfied, and that'll be all for today. The links are in the description so you can check it out, and of course you can check out their official website for more details. And that's it, guys. If you like the case, if you like the build, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, click the notification bell, and I'll see you quite soon in another one. Thanks. Bye bye.